Our scene is set a few moments after the trial of Dietrich Graves, after the prince had given his proclamation, after the seneschal had made himself ward over the Cappadocian, after the prince and seneschal both realize that they are playing the same game, after the prince realizes that perhaps deep down he and Dietrich are not that different. He walks right now, though, with Miss Tavoularis as she takes the man in the wheelchair outside. They're quickly joined by Miss Bellefleur as she rushes to catch up with the prince. And after stepping into one of the side streets and quickly changing out of the hazmat suits, or at least the prince, and I'm assuming Emma would, Prince will turn to Kalliope and say, "Is there anything else that I should be made immediately aware of about your meeting with Father Vic?"
With him? No. But the book's gone.
I got that from your original message. You do have very strong oracular powers. I am impressed.
Well,
I
took
have
a
met
while to
very few
develop, but...
toreadors. Please continue.
Oh, sorry. Took a while to develop, but it was out of necessity.
I see his light will fall upon the man you are pushing in the wheelchair before returning to yours. You will say, "I have not known many toreadors who would develop this particular ability. They do have their certain edges, though. You have succeeded greatly where others have been found wanting. Would you be interested in a position within the crucible orders that I have installed? I'm currently missing an arc cleric, someone who can lead the more humane amongst us, the ones who are more willing to care, who do not get themselves bound in politics, so that they can truly keep this city whole and watch out for the souls of those who are in need, be their kindred or kind."
I'll think on it. I've stayed away from positions for the last 5 years because they tend to put targets on your head.
I understand, and I would not ask this of you if the situation were not so desperate right now.
Well, we'll discuss more of that when we get to the church. There may be more eyes and ears out here.
Agreed, as he does look around.
And,
we will head to the car.
Yep, she'll head to their car and make sure that they've got everything off. If you and Emma want to do yours first, or Matt, are you back in solid?
We'll do yours first.
Yeah, if you guys can do yours first, I'll just sort out my doodads.
In that case, the prince will head back to the car. The ghoul is there waiting for them. He left the church by another exit after making sure that nothing was made amongst the kind of Mr. Falcone's sudden arrival. A few rumors may be going around about potentially the gas leak being something that was done on purpose, but it does not last long. As the Mountain View Mortuary returns to normal, the only things that may come of it may be some cracks spouting about government conspiracies later on, but that is an unfortunate facet of life for those who are in Reno, even amongst the kind themselves. The ghoul will enter the driver's side of the car, and once the prince and his young magister are in the passenger side, We'll begin to head towards the Church of Saint Augustine. The prince will look out the window. He will try to hide it, but his anxiousness is replaced by a nervousness.
We'll make an attempt at seeing what the prince is on about. 1, 2, 3.
Very good. She can tell that the fate of Dietrich Graves is something that is troubling him more than... What was that? It's troubling him more than...
It's Graves!
Going on.
It's a zombie! And she will say, anything you wish to speak about, my prince?
The prince will turn to her, and she can almost see that sort of curtain descend over his feelings as he will say, no, what's done is done. All we can do is ensure that Dietrich doesn't do anything else incredibly stupid.
After the meeting that happened the other night, that's one big wish.
Perhaps, but can you really blame him anymore? Tell me, Emma, when you were alive, were you ever in love?
She'll say, I was young, I had a boyfriend, I loved him, he was in the house with my parents when... And she'll look down. When my sire burnt it all down.
Say no more, Emma. Love is one of the strongest forces of humanity, in that it is both one of the greatest anchors to who we were, but also often the first thing that is lost to the beast, for it can generate the most pain than any other facet of the human mind. Hatred, jealousy, anger, joy, all of those things may bring with them the shackles of weakness in the eyes of some, but none more so than love, for it makes you a slave, or so some would say. But it is strong, and those who still remember are able to reach heights of humanity that have only been heard about in legends. Some say it is even the key to transcending, to shackle the beast once and for all. But that is all hearsay. Right now we have, as he looks out the window, a man who is willing to endanger the entire city for love. Tell me, Emma, out of all of the reasons why, does that exempt him from his fate? It is all the worse for someone to doom their brethren for the right reason or for a selfish reason.
She'll say, even after going through death, we are still slaves to our emotions, and she'll say, if we are to make mistakes, if we are to do wrong, then even if others of this world do not forgive us, the forces above will it will be easier for the forces above to forgive us if we did it for the right emotions, if we did it for love or friendship. If we did it for simple selfish emotions, then Maybe this is what gets us closer to the beast. The beast, I think the beast tries to tempt us by giving our emotions to we have towards others, but deep down the beast, all the beast cares about is itself.
My Emma, you may make a great cleric after all. Do not forget that as the years roll on. For the beast does prey on the selfish desires of man. That is all it truly is. The ugly, bitter id given teeth by God to prey upon men that had ignored it for so long. As the prince just looks out the window again. And from there, we will transition to the other car.
Boodaloop, boodaloop, boodaloop. They finish getting John out of, well, she finishes getting John out of the hazmat suit, back with Jeffrey, and then back into the vehicle, and Jeffrey starts to drive, and the two in the back just seem to sit in what he would assume, is utter silence.
John pulls back the hood covering his head, tosses his hair slightly, and crinks his neck. Well, that was uneventful. But certainly educational.
I haven't had any zombies walk in on a party in a while.
Fascinating power. I don't think Tremere in their heyday could have done something like that in such grandiose fashion, and while bound and gagged too. Fascinating these new breeds are.
Well, new but old. And speaking of old, the shadows are here in Reno.
Yes. I remember you telling me. This prince, what do you make of him?
We'll see. He's not like the ones I knew down, the Lasombra we knew down in Atlanta. That's for damn sure.
No. Well, we never really got to see the upper echelons, but from what I understand, at least from the stories in Europe, many of them do take religious titles. They do seem to have an obsession with Catholicism, especially.
Well, once you're raised with it, it never gets out of your blood, unfortunately. You lucked out in England.
Yes, I can only count my lucky stars. I was born into the age of enlightenment, when reason ruled superstition. But he surprised me. He was not as fire as brimstone as I thought. In the same shoes, I probably would have cut off a few hands to make a show of it, please the crowd, rather than make an obvious attempt and a struggle with his seneschal, was it? I overheard?
Well,
over ownership.
That's the thing. His seneschal is a backstabbing Ventru, and the Malkavian, I don't think she's any better. You weren't paying much attention the last 5 years, but when From was here, those three were all sitting close to the throne.
I see. And the fact that they haven't torn themselves apart is a miracle in itself. A man might turn to religion after all.
Well, Graves may have something to do with the tearing apart. I'm still suspicious that that Venture would want him so bad. My inclination is that Graves was either doing something for him or knows something that he needs to keep quiet and doesn't want found out.
Oh, entirely. A Ventru with Dignas. He says the word with actual sort of vile now and a little bit of spite when he mentions anything to do with his clan. clinging on to a sinking ship like that must have some... And he smirks a little. Skeletons in his closet.
I still don't quite know if Graves was planning to kill her again, if the spirit was planning to kill her, if I'm just seeing, hearing, feeling things in my head like her again. That's sure as hell what it felt like. It's been a long time since I was psychically hit by a truck.
John nods probably. But he generally does care for her, that much is plain. But his version of caring for her might be very different than ours. Who knows?
She's dead anyway. She's got cancer.
And I suspect Mr. Graves will probably do something drastic, like bring her over.
I told her to go live out the rest of her life. That's what I thought she was doing when I sent her away the first time, but unfortunately, whatever this thing is, well, she's dead anyway the first time, and he tried to bring her back. At least, that's what his note said. And dabbling in things you do not know, instead of bringing her back correctly, fettered some kind of spirit to her.
It all goes two ways, after all. I know your intentions were good, but you should not underestimate the power of the blood. They'll always come running back.
I figured she would anyway, but I couldn't force her to leave. I could only tell her. She's not my human.
Anything I must know before introducing myself to this prince? My God, this gets tedious.
From, I think, is gone, but there's still some unsettledness in who's going to officially seat the throne. I don't know if he's still ruling by proxy or what, but I suspect there'll be a few more ruffled feathers. A Nosferatu prince was bad enough. Now a Lasombra.
Oh, Brom had his charm in a strange sort of way, and when you say about the man, he made the city work. You have to admire that, even if he did do it inelegantly.
Well, you can't expect a Nosferatu to do a job that belongs to a king.
Quite. Or a queen.
In any case, the first thing that needs to be gotten rid of is this deal with the creature. I think the hunters will leave after this is resolved. At least that's my hope. Vic said he came here for the Week of Darkness to investigate, not specifically for us. We had a low enough radar before that.
Did I ever tell you of the story of the Obsidian Order that plagued the city?
Don't think so.
It was a hunter order. It was forwarded by Mr. Williams. He was tasked to get rid of them. There were some other Ventrue who botched the job, but one thing I can say for certain is that each and every one of them are fanatics. They will not give an inch, and if they are retreating from the city, it is only to gather or research more. They will be back. They want nothing more than to destroy all of us, and unless something is done with them, then perhaps we'll have a bigger problem.
But they're like weeds. You take one down and more pop up.
What did Williams say? If you have problems with weeds, then it's about time you started sowing the grass.
Could double cross them.
possibly, or place an agent within their number. Even fire can be controlled, albeit with care.
Well, for now, I don't trust Graves to know enough how to fix his mistakes if he couldn't do it right in the first place. If these hunters can take care of banishing the spirit, or if it just happens to destroy them in the process, that's fine by me. What's the worst that comes to worst? We lose Graves' ghoul, he's heartbroken for another century. Not my problem.
You have gotten cold over these last 5 years, my dear. I'm not sure whether to be proud or terrified. Perhaps both.
One does what one must.
Just so.
And at that point, they'll get pretty close to the church. Jeffrey will drive up and go to let them out. Calliope will grab the chair out of the trunk and bring it over to the door where John is, and then she and Jeffrey will get him into the chair and wheel up to the front, presumably bumping into Emma.
Emma will be waiting in front of the church. She will see Kalliope, and as soon as she sees her, she will actually run towards her and grab her in her arms and start caressing her hair, look her in the eyes, and she'll just say, "It is good to see you all right."
She'll go back to the smaller girl and just run her hand back down there as well and do the French cheek to greet her as well and say, "Is the father ready?"
She'll say, "Yes. Come this way."
John rolling some self-control there.
And she'll open the door and she'll walk to the back of the church. How many of the? I think Kalliope has in the night church, but don't think the venture has the old prince have.
Oh, please, call me John. We're like family now, right?
No, she hasn't seen the inside of the church yet. The regular church looks like a nice, old architecture church, big windows and stuff, a nice big pipe organ in the back. But you're going to lead us down to the secondary, yeah?
And as Emma moves to the back of the church, she goes to wall and presses a brick, and it opens, and there's just this big corridor heading downstairs, and she starts heading down. She goes, "Follow me now."
Is there stairs?
Oh, yes.
Oh,
Shit.
Calliope will actually, oh fuck, I might have to spend a blood on my fucking strength. Yeah, fuck it, she'll do it. She'll go ahead and,
If you're thinking of carrying
Emma
it,
can help.
no, she was gonna take it and just put, one, have our one arm of both girls to kind of help him, with the adjustment down the stairs.
Emma was actually, I was gonna say, Emma comes, she takes a few steps and she stops and goes, "Oh, I nearly forgot." And she comes back up and she helps to try and get John up.
John puts his hands up. This is quite a sudden motion, and it's pretty fast for someone who's been comatose for God knows how long. And then he lifts his head up. This is the first time Emma, when any time she's visited Calliope, has seen him move. He moves like a mannequin, like a statue. His eyes glaring over her. His eyes are icy blue. And then they crack into that of a smile. Seemingly exceedingly warm and friendly, like an old teacher that you remember from school. "Please, ladies, a man must have his dignity." And he stands up and he takes Calliope's shoulder as support, and Emma will see that actually his leg doesn't operate. He is obviously a prosthetic. and as proudly as he can, although it does seem he's a tired old man, that he will hobble down the stairs to this night church.
She'll get him down to the bottom, and because she'll have, the folded up of the chair stuff on the other hand, and then just, make the motion of the look. Actually, I should just telepathically ask him, do you want the chair again?
No.
And then she'll just leave it against the wall, since they'll have to go back up that way to get out anyhow.
So, Emma, Calliope has told me so much about you. I do hope you have been keeping my angel entertained.
She'll smile, and she'll smile, first looking at John and then back at Calliope, and then back at John, and she goes, I believe I have. You'd have to ask her.
Excellent. You know how the Toreador are, my dear. The newest fancy is always the one that shines the brightest. Welcome to our little family. I look forward to knowing you a little bit more in the coming nights now that I have designated to join society.
She'll smile, goes, thank you, it is a privilege to know you consider me part of your family.
He pats her on the shoulder warmly and then hits a rather bumpy stare and continues to walk down in silence.
Calliope will just smile to herself. She knows exactly where John's going with this, but doesn't say anything, and will follow Emma.
Emma will lead them down the stairs as I believe Ben is better at describing this. He has done it before.
Oh yes. Down the stairs, through a long corridor, into what will be directly beneath the church proper, almost like a reflection beneath it. You will come to almost a mere replica, except the architecture exhibits more that is found in the crypts, either below the Vatican or the other ancient places. Surrounding the walls are 7 statues, each one depicting one of the proud, idealized members of one of the original founding 7 clans. Although one statue has been defaced, it is entirely missing its head. Pews line the main pathway, and where instead of any religious iconography beyond the altar, there is instead a throne upon which sits the Prince of Reno. If John looks up, he will see that instead of a sort of mosaic depicting scenes from the Bible like you would see in some of the churches in Europe, you will see just a ceiling painted completely black. And whether Calliope wants to reveal what this is actually painted there, she may.
She'll just look up at it and kind of just run her eyes along the blackness again. And then she might scoot to the side a little bit, and then scoot back over to the other side a little bit, look at the black, and then just look back down again.
I look up. What am I seeing?
Roll me perception plus awareness, and you can add aspects if you have it.
I do. How does I haven't played Reno rules. How does Auspex differ from V20?
For this particular one, just add your Auspex dice too.
Alright, cool. Even more dice. Oh, but a terrible roll. No, it's black.
Oh.
I'm much more interested in the kindred on the throne than I am the architecture at the moment.
Yeah, you got no successes.
And as
Construct additional
Stanshope
platforms.
walks down the aisle, the prince is a little surprised to see that the one sort of leading is the man who was formerly in the wheelchair, and as he begins to look over the man, he begins to recognize a few telltale signs, and he needs to make I believe it was intelligence plus politics, as you said.
Mhm.
So that's going to be a 4 for me.
Do you need us to roll for you?
Yes, please. Unfortunately,
Okay, no.
laptop's still down.
Don't have me do it. I got bad luck.
Yeah, that's 3 successes. Oh yeah,
Oh,
you've heard of the brat prince of New Sarum.
And by brat, we mean young.
hmm. The prince will rise from his throne, walk around the altar, and with arms outstretched will say, "Well, well, well, if I had realized, I would have made this place look a little bit more acceptable to have a fellow prince joining me this evening. I had not realized that you were with Miss Tavoularis, or else I would have given you a more proper intro earlier." As he will then, using his etiquette, do a bow with just a tiny bit of sarcasm, as
Oh,
befitting one prince to a former.
oh, you do me such honor, my prince, but I no longer hold such a title, for a ruler of rubble is surely not a ruler at all, except for in real estate. I am awed by the ingenuity of your sanctum, my prince. It is certainly breathtaking.
Hmm. It is, or should I say, was the hallmark of my predecessors. A sanctuary built underneath the nose of the world to see. A testament to our ability to uphold the masquerade. And I hope you do not think that you are unwelcome here. The sanctuary is open to all.
A very generous offer. And I'm sure there is. He licks his fangs slightly. Salvation for all hidden within these walls. I believe there's a donation box that I passed on the way in.
As he smiles at that, he will say, "Oh, this is a delight. However, there are more pressing matters," as he turns his attention to Miss Tavoularis and then back to Stanshope. He will say, "If you do not mind, I must speak to your friend about her meeting earlier. Although, we must catch up and talk sometimes. The only prince I have had the pleasure to meet in person was our former one, and he, well, hmm, he was not one for conversation, or small talk, or anything for that matter. Mostly he would just... a lot of shouting. He was one of those kinds of princes. But I digress."
Of course, my prince. As I overheard in the court, you have many serious businesses of state. I will take a seat at the pews and allow you at your business, if you would allow a old man to rest his weary leg.
Age-wise, he doesn't look too old. He looks like he's probably like late 30s, yeah?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The prince will raise an inquisitive eyebrow and say, "This is a sanctuary for all. Stanshope, you're welcome to rest here."
And John will withdraw quietly. You will notice that just before he sits down, that even though his tone may be sarcastic, his form and etiquette is spot on. Even with like the what would some would say lowly, or at least humiliating or embarrassing the situation being like sort of carried by his paramour, he certainly deals with it with a certain amount of grace, but doesn't lord it over his obvious prince. He is definitely trying to act deferential.
And he takes note of that. It seems Clan Ventu is truly impeccable for its etiquette. But he doesn't focus on that long. His attentions do turn to Miss Tavoularis, as he says, "So, how did your meeting with the good father of Our Lady in the Snows parish go?"
We spoke, although he's not much for the talking, but at least he has more of a brain on him than the peons that he sent to do his work.
Hmm. Do go on.
He didn't make much mention of the killing. I played it as if we have a larger threat in the city that both of us should attend to, and to pin his attention away from us. Although, once they're here and they know where we are, more could come. Nothing is really safe. He did agree to assist and facilitate with the exorcism and the banishment of that spirit. Not being my area of expertise, at least we have the opportunity for that, and it could be twofold benefit. If they destroy themselves in the process, well, win-win.
As he will smile. He will then pause for a moment to think. Out of character. Have a good night.
Good night. Good night.
Yeah. She'll also say, he said, if we can get Angelica to the Lady of Snows, then they can take care of the exorcism. Whether or not we want to trust them with it is another story. If they fail, well, Graves loses a ghoul, and perhaps he'll cry for a century.
Gripping sorrow for a century. Had you not earlier said that the human nature that we have is what allows us to fight off the beast? That's why you came here the other night. It is such a strange change of tone. Don't get me wrong, I understand. Sometimes there must be necessary sacrifice.
Right now I'm more concerned with getting them out of our city and protecting ourselves. You have to make the hard choices.
You do. As he will smile for a minute, although with a perception plus empathy, you two can tell that it's totally fake right now.
I can probably presume I'll do pretty good. But let me roll it anyway. Empathy. Yep. 2 successes.
Yeah. He will then say, getting rid of this specter and the hunters will not solve the underlying problem that is plaguing the city. You see, our former Prince from, I'm beginning to realize that he had somewhat of a unique tactic. It on the surface seemed to work, but in reality he was merely just bottling the darkness that underlined the city up, putting it away, silencing those who would not talk, destroying others, growing his little garden, as it were. You've heard about the garden, right?
I didn't get the pleasure.
Oh. He had this botanical garden he set aside for himself, and what he would do is that whenever somebody came and they, let's say our Dietrich Graves, insulted someone higher, he would either destroy them, or he would take them to this wood chipper that he would believe lovingly call it, was it Bertha? Bessie, something like that. Anyways, he would slowly feed the kindred through the wood chipper, slowly destroying their limbs, Afterwards he would take them, just near stubs now, to this garden and put them into little vases. He would then, over the course of years, slowly feed them his own blood, building blood bonds, transforming them into mindless, slavering slaves to him, hopelessly mad. He loved his garden so much. It showed us an example of the prince I didn't want to become, but it also showed that he cared about functionality, but cared nothing for the sanctity of our city's spirit. How else, as soon as he gone, that all of the foulness and corruption that people had been quiet about burst through the surface like freshly planted seeds.
Which leaves you to deal with it.
It does. That is why this new restructuring is so important. The coterie system cannot return to the way it does until we know that all true threats have been expunged from Reno. And that is why I need people like yours help, Calliope, as well as Miss Blackmoon and Mr. Forsyth. We need to mitigate what was pushed under the rug. We need to root it out, cleanse this place of all of the foulness that has besmirched it. This specter will be the first. The hunters, if they leave, will be the second, or if they must be destroyed, so be it. They will still be the second. It's afterwards that I am worried about. We need to truly reevaluate our city, reevaluate its people, for the threats have not vanished. Tell me, have you heard any whispers around Elysium about a Sabbat threat?
Not as much about the Sabbat threat. At first we thought some of the other things coming in might have been cause of that. I don't know if there may be other, well, fouler things afoot as well. I will not lie. There were other Egyptian symbols jumbled amongst the German in the notebook before it vanished. Again, we had the conversation about the serpents, but I'm not an expert on the occult.
And as much as such learnings are dangerous, it is a fascination of mine, although I am still an amateur in its secrets.
Oh, she's got a roll to see if he's lying about that. And he's talking about being an amateur secrets because she has some, with all the people that are standing up for graves and the weird Egyptology shit and the ritual at Elysium, she doesn't quite know who else to implicate in this yet. Probably would do perception and what goes through lying? Alertness?
I would say empathy. You're trying to
Empathy? Okay.
feel him out.
Well then, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Like a hawk. He's not lying. Not at all.
Okay.
But he is most certainly... There's a hint of almost envy when he says that he is a amateur. A hint of self-loathing, perhaps? You cannot tell. There's something in it. But he does have an honest desire to grow his repertoire for such things. That you can see clearly. But the prince will continue. He will say, "Ah, yes, well, let me share with you a little bit of information that we heard before our prince mysteriously vanished. It seems, while he was in Vegas, rumors of Sabbat from down south in Arizona fixing their eyes on that city. It was one of our top priorities at the time to make sure that they did not get a foothold in Vegas, because our city is a big little city. It does not have the resources to stand up to a large metropolis should it fall to the Sword of Cain. That was our fear originally. We went around town, we tried to cover up the masquerade breaches, we did everything that was proper, everything that was normal, and still, from that, hunters were able to show up at our door, and of course the Graves incident. And now, who knows what those threats have been doing? Does the Sabbat just simply stop when we must deal with trouble within our own borders? When we must pull away resources from fighting them to make sure that our city does not fall? Think about what else could have reared its ugly head in this time of chaos such as ours. And you begin to see that the system was flawed, and that it needs to be restructured. So, Miss Tavoularis, what does one do when one's city is cast in darkness?
Well, we couldn't quite walk in the light. That would be a problem. And there isn't necessarily a clean light or dark. Everything has hues and shades. Order and chaos. But right now the balance is tipped too far on the side of chaos. And ultimately we need to preserve our existence and preserve those who are within our flock.
Very good. Izzy will turn and begin to slowly head back towards the throne. He will then sit, staring out at his congregation of two now, as John is sitting there listening. Kalliope has his attention. He will say, "The threat will never truly end. But we can ensure that the next time something foul rears its head, it will think twice before getting in the way of our city. And that is why, once these threats are put down, we need to refocus on shoring up the domains of our city to our loyal and active members who are willing to contribute to making the city a better place. We need to make sure that those who were formerly Primogen are worthy of being Primogen, that their allegiance to the Camarilla is strong, and that those who would simply be our laity, would simply want to live in the city undisturbed, so long as they pay their taxes, if you would, and uphold the traditions, are not spies for our enemy."
I know we'll need a new place to be. I don't care if the hunters leave. They know where the cabaret is. Despite being safe, the sheer fact that they know the location, I don't like to sleep where my enemies know I am. That's how New York fell in a week.
Precisely. I call this, as you may have been hinted, the Crucible Initiative. It is the trial that shall face all kindred of this city. Whether or not they shall lose everything or rise from the ashes reborn is entirely up to their actions and what they can contribute to this city. The old shall be remade into the new, and a better Reno will be born. one where hunters will not follow kindred around, discover their havens, and force us to have to openly confront them, to openly endanger the masquerade, to ensure that the few who do know of our existence remain few, if not none at all. And that those who would dare bring chaos to this city, our city, my city, they would think twice. Or better yet, they would hear such a notion and then laugh it off as suicide.
One can rule with peace and justice, but that sounds like there needs to be a certain amount of fear within that system.
Exactly.
Your clan has quite a few fear tactics, but treating all of our enemies with mercy may not start the ball rolling in terms of keeping others out.
Of course. There's an old saying, when you extend the hand of mercy, the shadow extends the hand that will strangle you. Both are always together. You cannot have one without the other. So, if I am to be the hand of mercy, tell me, Mr. Tavoularis, who should be the shadow?
We have quite a few. We're willing to be able to take dirty jobs.
Perhaps. But it's more to it than that. Because, like I said before, the former prince's tactic was to put away problems. Supposedly end them before they begin, but more often than not, he simply silenced the voices while the problem remained. I cannot allow that to happen as well. When we seek to excise something from our city, it must truly be banished. So,
In regards to the spirit, you are the man of the cloth. I don't know if we have any others in the city who have enough knowledge on that and experience. I know I don't have the years to have that knowledge.
that is the problem. And one that I believe I may have a reason to fix. Although it will need to be handled very cautiously, and for that I need somebody who can be my eyes and ears amongst the populace. That is one of the reasons why I offered the position of Arch-Cleric to you. It's not enough to hold a castle. You need to hear the whispers that go through it. You need to truly know what people feel, not what they're willing to say in front of the harpy. Somebody who's one of them.
I've done that job before.
Have you now? Were you good at it?
No one knew I was there.
Good.
Or everyone knew I was there, but didn't suspect a brain. My clan's good that way, you know. We like pretty shiny things and fluttering about.
You undertake this task, and you will be rewarded greatly. Perhaps planting seeds of your own for a time when we can return to the way things should be. To a time before such unhallowed seeds were planted in our garden.
First bit of business. I didn't mention it while we were there, because there were other ears and other people. But I can't quite put two and two together as to why Falcone so very much is standing up for a grave robber.
My seneschal. Perhaps I am the wrong person you are asking, as he will turn his attention to Stanshope, as he's still sitting there in the booth.
He'll make a show of looking up like he wasn't listening. Pardon?
As the prince will say, I have known Mr. Falcone for a long time, but have not, well, really been anything more than an acquaintance until very recently, as I'm sure you're probably both aware of. I do not fully know the Ventru's tastes, as it were, towards who they elevate and who they exterminate. I do know that if our dear seneschal has an interest in teacher grades, it is something that he will benefit from immensely. Am I wrong?
I wouldn't say that was just a Ventru trait, my prince. But it would surprise me if it was altruistic.
As would I. If you could keep an eye on the two of them for me, Miss Tavoularis, of course, as any rose would, of course.
Indeed.
You will be owed. And I repay those who are faithful and productive. See, that is one thing me and the prince have in common, is that despite everything that has happened, it is better to have somebody who can get a job done than somebody who does not.
Speaking of job done, I did get to look over most of the book. The book was a 4th volume. He must have had other notes somewhere. I don't know where they are. Within the words, there were additional ciphers. I could tell certain letters and bits and pieces were moved in places, most likely to construct the rituals that were being done. I didn't have enough time to actually solve the ciphers without having the key, but they were there. The book itself started with notes that Graves had from older Giovanni books and visions that the Giovanni...
What?
She'll stop from it.
Gets up immediately.
She'll say, well, yes, this young Cappadocian had read some notes of the rituals and things that the other clan had had before their untimely or timely demise. But particularly...
Sits down again.
Yes, particularly visions and notes on how to raise dead, which makes sense considering what we saw earlier tonight. But some of the other notes were also on how to use and guide souls back to their bodies. The details of it were coded, but I could get notes and pieces that he was making notes on varieties of different types of spirits, and some were good and some were bad. And the interesting bit was, I think Angelica's already dead. He had made notes of a situation where Angelica had died. I don't think it was all in his head. I think she actually died. She does have cancer. And despite the blood, for whatever reason, he attempted to bring her back, but not having finished all of his story and his history, there were shortcuts, there were errors. He made notes in his journal about how he had a flawed procedure. The And now the spirit that was supposed to bring souls back to the body was that of whatever this creature or entity happens to be. A wraith, a spirit, a specter, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, but it's not a benevolent one. It's one of wrath and vengeance. And at first I thought the hunters were the ones making the humans do this. It boggled my mind. But it's that spirit. And it's fettered to Angelica for now, but Graves had notes saying that it didn't have to stay necessarily with one body, and by the time it consumes the spirit whole, then it's fully anchored in reality here. Graves was desperate towards the end of his notes. He was remorseful. He had written about what had he done, trying to help, failed miserably. He had eventually fed that creature with more souls of the dead while trying to bring Angelica back, and it's just, he had notes in there about needing to exorcise it from her in order to destroy the bond that it had, but needing to be careful that it didn't hop to another body within the process or consume the soul entirely. It feeds off negative energy and death and angry feelings, and he also thought that the spirit was using Angelica to get at him. It seemed like from his notes that it had been quite some time, that the spirit was smart. It just sat dormant for a while, not letting Graves know that it was there while it was slinking within Angelica's body and twisting different things. Some of the other Egyptian symbols, again, I saw that symbol of Sobek one more time. He thought he had started to find a ritual with a way to save her spirit by using spirits of justice and things like that to tie her back, and funny enough, that symbol with Anubis and Sobek on her shoulder and the heart. At this point, I don't know if he was trying to do the ritual to banish the creature and was planning to do that in an Elysium. I mean, honestly, who does that? Who invites everyone to a party like that to banish something when it could possibly all blow up in your face? I don't know. But I will also tell you that this spirit has the power to completely twist the reality around you. It was like that elder Malkavian twisting your mind, in that your soul and your spirit and your weight feels completely drained. Everything around me changed into a theater. Angelica was trying to play her cello, and then she came right up in front of me, and her eyes, blacker than the blackest shadows, and lines coming down from her, and all of a sudden the spirit was speaking through her, taunting me, trying to bring out whatever angry feelings it could possibly twist from me. It must have known things that were inside my mind too, because Leopold was there, and I haven't seen him since he abandoned me.
Who?
My sire.
Oh.
It's as if it knew it wanted to elicit feelings of hate and anger and betrayal. But luckily I was able to keep enough of my sanity together, knowing that he really wasn't there. I was in my living room. I had been at the coffee table. I was looking at a book. I had to still physically be there. I didn't travel anywhere. So I started to reach out for where familiar objects were. You know the layout of your house after having lived there for so long. Followed the wall, ran it along, until I was able to snap myself out of that false reality, and the walls started shattering like glass down and around me, like broken mirrors, until I was back where I was, but that lingering cackle was still there. And then the notebook was gone. There was a note from Angelica that said, "Sorry, Angelica, I don't know if it's her handwriting. I've never seen it. I don't know how it got there. There was no one else in my apartment.
I have heard rumors that these apparitions are able to surpass through normal objects, but if this creature was possessing this ghoul, she should not have been able to do that. Perhaps this creature has some other unknown power that we do not
Or
know. This is the problem.
perhaps it can manipulate objects and just wrote that down. And Angelica was never really there. I don't think she was. I don't know. Perhaps he's just doing it to toy.
What about, you said this was in your haven, right? Have you checked the security cameras?
No one came in, no one came out. But as soon as that all finished happening, fights broke out upstairs. It's as if the spirit had gone up and just in its very wake just radiated an aura of chaos and anger.
As the prince sort of narrows his eyes and says, nothing. Was the timestamp accurate on that footage?
I haven't checked the video footage upstairs. But there was nothing in our basement apartment. No, nothing. We can't keep staying there now, though. The hunters know where we are.
I am not that familiar with modern technology, but I have made myself familiar with cameras to a degree because of, well, as he looks at his shadow in its emaciated form, it seems to be staring to where John is sitting, almost like a predator staring at somebody through the tall grass. As he looks down at it, he says, my clan's particular weakness. Shall we
Yes.
say.
I found that out about Emma when she came to dance rehearsal, and there were ballet mirrors.
It's not just mirrors, it's anything that can catch the reflection of a Lasombra. It's the strangest thing. Still water, mirrors, electronic devices, but more so than that. A particularly astute kindred. I think they might have even been Malkavian, not entirely sure. Did some research on that with one of our magisters a while ago. They said that for some reason or another, the image, or should we say, our bodies generate an electronic magnetic field. It is what disturbs the image and the machine that holds it. It's what, they said, it demagnetizes it. But we are not the only things that can generate such a field. Apparently, there are devices that can do such things. Perhaps
I saw it on the History Channel. I saw it on the History Channel. Those ghost shows. And like she gets excited for a minute about that, you know, a little bit excited about like they said on those ghost shows too that spirits have that same kind of thing. I've seen them with their little devices.
I think at that point, the prince and John will look at Calliope and then look at each other, and then look at Calliope again.
Exactly. Prince will not respond. He'll just simply stare at her and listen to what she's saying. Quite not sure of what to make of this sudden shift.
She just got this like you know, it's like a Toreador light bulb that went off, and then she's like, "Oh man, I'm looking awkward. I'm just gonna stop now."
And he then says, yes, it is possible that this creature can also generate an electronic magnetic field. With it, they could tamper with all kinds of electronic devices, be they cameras, be they computers, possibly even, I don't know, is there a staircase that leads down to this haven of yours?
No, there's an elevator.
Ah, an elevator. It might be able to disturb its workings itself.
I think we're straying on to the realms of polite conversation, my prince. Would you care to explain the current decorations within your haven?
Unfortunately, when it comes to a creature such as this, our lack of knowledge is what is going to be our doom. We will speak no more on this History Channel that you have been watching, but for now, go back to your haven. See if there is any signs that has been tampered with. Find a ghoul or even a kine to come look at this. Use this blackout as an example. Nothing happens for no reason. If this creature has the power to influence electronic devices, then that knowledge that it can is the arsenal in our weaponry.
We still need to find Angelica.
We do, but I have an idea of where she is. Over the years, my former coterie has done many things to uphold the masquerade and track down places of what we would call supernatural significance in Reno. There is one that is particularly associated with the dead. If she is anywhere, she will probably be there. Perhaps you've heard the legend of it.
She'll raise an eyebrow.
There was this man who lived on the very outskirts of Reno. It was during the Cold War, you see, and he was certain that the end days were nigh. And so he built himself a bunker. He took his family and he digged, and he learned all of the skills needed to build the structure by himself. It became an obsession for him, and as the years rolled on, his family began to realize that the end was not coming, and so they began to move on. But he was stubborn. He was certain that death was coming, that the end was coming, and it would be a nuclear fire that would block out the sun. And so when his wife and their children decided to finally leave in panic, he took their own lives. Better that he kill them quickly than have them rot away slowly to nuclear radiation. Better them to not know the doom when they saw the mushroom cloud appear on the horizon and know that the end had come and that there was nothing they could do to stop it. And he buried that secret with him for years. And he died in that bunker. It became a landmark. And then we came along and we turned it into a popular tourist attraction for a while. And then eventually it faded from memory entirely. Masquerade was upheld, and that secret was buried with the sands. Just one of the many little dark secrets of our city. I was not lying when I said that there is something foul underlying this city. When you spend enough time here, you will begin to see it too. Prince did his best to make people ignore it, though. I will not make that mistake.
Hopefully not the same kind of darkness I've seen underneath other cities.
He'll raise an eyebrow at that, but he will not push the topic. Where the hour has grown late, he will say, "These next few nights are going to be decisive. Graves' fate will be decided, as well as that of this invader that is now causing chaos amongst the city. Do your best
Indeed.
to make sure that it is stopped. Even just reaching out to a friend, making sure that defenders are looked after. The people feel they're not alone in times like this is incredibly useful. You have proven that you are very adept at that. I have not forgotten that you have become somewhat of a, I would say, comrade to my fellow magister, Emma Bellefleur.
She'll nod.
Let me do a perception empathy roll just to see if I can see the prince's feelings or relationships to Emma. Oh. Damn you ones. No.
Nope, can't tell.
Don't help none.
In that regards, the prince will say, use your talents wisely. And hopefully when this is all over, the city will be better for it, and the both of your lives will be better for it. But if there is nothing else you would bring to my attention, that will be all for this evening.
No, really just an update on that, what that was, and any of those potential rituals that were in that book are not in our possession anymore.
If you have time, speak with Mr. Graves in person. No doubt the Seneschal will be there, but it would be better for our forces to know what those rituals are before going in there. I would hate for our Cappadocian friend to endanger any more lives with his silence.
Indeed. She'll go to stand up and to get John an arm.
John will rise and bow to the prince. It has been an honor, my prince. I hope to have further discussions with you. I know how heavy the reins of leadership often wear on one's shoulders, and when you are surrounded with critics or sycophants, sometimes it is always best to have a non-biased ear to speak to.
I would like that very much. We shall have a talk when all of this is over. May it be soon.
And she will go so John can move along on her arm and grab the wheelchair when they get up to the exit of the stairs. And she'll probably just keep walking him out for now because they have to get back into the car. It'd be easier to not deal with a chair.
And on the way out, John will whisper rather than speak in the head, as he doesn't mind if people overhear. So, Arc Cleric, that's like Scourge, right? Sounded like Scourge.
She says, I don't know. But we needed to find a new haven anyway, so.
Well, not one. Not one designed by our dearest prince.
No, but saw no harm in that since the damnable cat's out of the bag anyway, and evil spirits and hunters know where we live.
Oh no. I have great hopes for this man. He reminds me of me in those early days, full of vim and vigour and plans. And when they all come crushing down because of the ineptitude of the general populace, we will be there, smiling, and being the ones who have always supported him.
Indeed. Well, and she'll get into the back of the car and grab two of the glasses, because presumably Jeffrey's got the little, glasses in the mini bar set in the fancier car, and says, "To new ventures and prosperous gains."
A new city, new opportunities.
And she'll clink glasses, and they will cut it there.
That is where our scene will end. Thank you, and have a wonderful evening.